Hi, I'm Roger Conrad. I'm the editor of Utility Forecaster as well as Canadian Edge and Vital Resource Investor. And today I want to talk about the utility sector. It's definitely been one of the hottest sectors over the past several months, partly because of everything else hasn't been so hot. People have been worried about recession. Utilities have a innate ability to do well in all environments, and it basically just boils down to the fact that they produce essential services. And you can, the cliche I guess is, you can cancel a vacation or cancel a purchase, but you're not going to not pay your utility bill unless things are truly dire. So what that translates to in dollars and cents is that you have businesses that tend to hold their own in bad environments when there's a recession, and that's definitely what people are worried about now. So utilities, reflecting that, have basically been rallying very strongly, particularly going into the end of this year. The rally, viewed in a larger perspective, began back at the end of 2002 in the wake of the Enron crisis and so forth, which really created a tremendous meltdown throughout the industry. Since then, they've been coming back and scoring pretty big returns every year. So it's a continuation of that. Again, it's also because of recession worries. The big question I think that investors need to ask, though, is when they're making money in the markets, and again, this is one of the sectors that's doing very well. We've hit all-time highs repeatedly over the last several weeks, and given the traditional December, rather, seasonal strength that you see in utilities typically, we could see, we're likely to see more gains ahead. But I think the real important thing to look forward, and one thing that people don't do when they're making a lot of money in a sector like utilities, is to look ahead and see, well, we've had some big gains, or is it possible that we're going to see more down the road? What really lies ahead? What's next for this sector? I think that there are several issues to consider. The big one, I guess, is that the recovery from the meltdown of 2001-2002 on a fundamentals basis in terms of companies recovering their financial strength, and roughly at that time about 24 were very close to bankruptcy. But the job of repairing finances has pretty much been completed for most companies. There's still a few that are working their way back, but for the most part that's a lagging indicator. This industry has completed its recovery. So that was a major factor in the returns that these things have thrown off over the past 5 years or so, that they were coming back from a disaster and so forth. But going forward, of course, there are other issues coming up, and one of which is a tremendous amount of capital spending that has to go on. And I'm speaking generally of utilities across the board. I consider power companies, water companies, even some of the telecom sector, areas of the telecom sector to be in that group. But the common thread amongst all of them is that we really haven't had that much investment in this country in those sectors in the last 20-30 years. It's been starting to pick up here, particularly in the telecom sector, where we see fiber optic networks constructed, a lot of spending on wireless. But in the power sector, the water sector, these areas, you're just now beginning to see more spending. Again, what's driving it? Well, we haven't had much spending the last 30 years or so. People have been really focused more on keeping their rates down, so therefore companies have focused on keeping their costs down and put off these capital structure projects and so forth. So we have a lot of aging infrastructure out there and a tremendous need to replace it. There's also a fantastic increase in more demand, so for power, for communication services. So it's very important that companies figure out how to meet those demands and then how to pay for them. And it really boils down in a big way to regulation. So that's a big factor that I'm going to be looking at going forward. I think right now you want to hold on to your utility stocks, ride out the rest of this. I think good utility stocks will continue to do well going forward. We're going to see differentiation, but again, it's time to take a more skeptical look at the sector and to make sure you're in the stocks you want to be in.